We in there? Turn on. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the celebration of life for the great Marty Goodman. Yes. This is a testament. This crowd is a testament of the quality that Marty was. Unbelievable. As I look around, I see a lot of greats here, and I have to tell you, it's overwhelming because my heart is really in a great place. I know when we had discussed it, myself and Alan, and we discussed that there's just no way that Marty was not going to be honored. And so here we are tonight to honor a great man. You know, it didn't take a lot to be touched by Marty. All you had to do was be in his presence. Oh yeah, he was different. He was a character. But that's what made him. That's what made him special. He was different than everybody else. He was Marty Goodman, damn it. You know, a lot of people talk about leading and about the business. But how many is truly about that business? You know, when you do it part-time, it's a different thing. When you do it full-time, you're doing it like Marty Goodman. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. I can tell you for sure, one thing I know for sure, you know, I don't know how deep it is in terms of life after death. But I would tell you this, Marty Goodman is going to live forever. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about here on earth, where it's most important, because at the end of the day, the work you put in is the credit that you receive at the end of the day. He was a thankless, selfless individual. Most people in human nature wakes up and wants thanks and praises for the efforts, the things that they do for other people. But here this is a man that we all filled this room today, came from near and far. American Airlines. Just to be here to honor this great man. Everybody in this room could have been somewhere else, but we've all chose to come here to honor this great man. You know, I'm not going to hold the mic long because, honestly, each and every one of us could stand up here all night and go till closing time just by talking about Marty Goodman. And we all want to, but we can't. Please, we can't. We have a list of people that want to speak and send the messaging out. But let me just say this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Marty Goodman was a friend to all. Marty Goodman truly cared about all. Marty Goodman didn't see color. What Marty Goodman seen was people in need, and he felt compelled to put his best foot forward to help those who had a hard time helping themselves. Wow, what a man. What a man. Please, let's give a round of applause for Marty Goodman. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Robert Kelly. I am the Vice President of Stations Department, proud Vice President of Stations Department, where Marty Goodman came from. He was an E-board member, and he was just so many things. But let's just keep it real. Nobody put a gag order on Marty. Nobody. He was a man's man, and he did it all, and he did it his way, unapologetic. He was not apologetic about anything he's done, and he laid his head down on his pillow every night like a man. To you, brother, I love you always and respect you to eternity. So we have a speaker here, a fine young man that came all the way from Oakland, California. I don't know if you ever had crabs at Fisherman's Wharf, but Mr. Jeff Mackler. Mr. Mackler, I appreciate you. We spoke on Zoom and stuff, trying to put this thing together. You were very instrumental in helping us facilitate this, and I thank you, kind sir. Without further ado, Mr. Jeff Mackler.
Well, I fully expect Marty to walk in the room any minute and ask to be added to the speakers list. I remember when Joe Lombardo, who is with us here today, the national coordinator of UNIC, was speaking at an anti-war meeting, and it was his turn to speak. Marty sashayed up to the stage and told Joe what to say. Marty was magnificent, crazy, nutty, eccentric, loving, and the most dedicated revolutionary I have ever met. And as Robert said, he did it in his own way. Before I begin to introduce the other speakers, I'd like to ask a personal question. How many of you got a phone call from Marty Goodman after 12 midnight? And that was New York time. When my wife and I were watching television at midnight, Marty's name would flash on our TV set at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my wife said, "Could you take that in the living room, Jeff? It's Marty." And Marty always had some important issue. Marty was crazy. He literally attended 5-6 meetings a day. And he trekked his newspaper, his newsletter, his table, and his literature. How many people have seen Marty under those circumstances? Whether it be strike solidarity with the UAW, support for a Palestinian struggle against genocide, anti-war, defense of Julian Assange, Mumia Abu-Jamal, defense of Cuba, Marty was there for every single action without exception. So I'm going to introduce some of the speakers tonight who we're going to spend 4 or 5 minutes max. And if I raise my hand, it means your time is pretty much up. And we'll go from there. I do have Steve Downs, but I don't know if he wants to speak. Is Steve here?
Yeah, but this is news to me.
Steve, would you like to say a few words? Steve Downs, TWU Local 100. Lifetime trade union activist militant. Welcome, Steve.
Advantage of not knowing I was doing this is it means it gets very, very short. Marty and I worked together for 25 years on union matters in Local 100 through the rank and file organization of New Directions on the executive board and through the ups and downs of all of that. Marty and I, we disagreed a lot. Although, thinking about it, it's probably more accurate to say we disagreed about the same couple of things over and over and over and over and over. And that could be frustrating. And given the laughs, I suspect some of you have been in similar situations. It can be frustrating. It sometimes can be enlightening. But what I really think that it reflects about Marty is that despite those constant disagreements, the disagreements were not what was most important to Marty. What was most important to Marty was what did you agree on, and that was what made him decide whether or not you were on the same side or not. And the scope of our agreement was always greater than the scope of our disagreement, but it didn't keep the disagreements from coming up again and again and again. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Steve is also a legend. The next speaker we have is, I want to say, Marty-esque. Give it up for Mr. Steve Anderson.
Good evening and welcome, everyone.
Good evening, Steve.
I'm a railroad clerk, just like Marty.
I first met Marty when he was working his second shift on the road as a railroad clerk. R151, Times Square. He had the side window. I remember that he told Ken to man the booth, and I, who was sort of a crowd-appeasing supernumerary, he told us that he hailed from Miami, FLA. Later, the conversation veered into his pursuits down there, in particular of justice and liberation for the people of Haiti. He successfully completed his tour. He was on his way into the world of railroad clerks. Somewhat appropriately, he served the public for over 2.5 decades. I also recall Kent and I commenting that Duvalier and the Tonton Coots were not to be trifled with. We had great respect for him. Marty and I would run into each other over the years on the road, and he was a student of mine when I taught the shop stewards class for my union in 1993. That's funny, looking around, I never thought I could pair the words comfort and exhilaration in the same sentence. But in such company as this, I am comforted and exhilarated by your presence and the deeds you carry with you. Sisters and brothers and loving countrymen who give a damn. Activists who toil for the cause that is just, over and over. Would society be blessed with more of you? How humanity would benefit. Activism, social intervention, rain or shine for a fair world. Out there for goodness, for humanity, humankind. Marty was no activist. Marty is a warrior. A warrior who, from the verdant sea of the Caribbean to the amber waves of grain imperiled by a pipeline in the Midwest, the green gray canyons of Manhattan, joined the fight to protect the rights of the powerless. Flesh to ashes, bones to dust, however this lives on. The spirit, the warrior spirit, the spirit when the powerless face an existential threat. The spirit will light and illume the path to victory for them. The warrior spirit, yes, Marty is not dwelling in the past tense. The spirit will continue. Battles will be waged. The struggle will go on. The battle will be won.
Our speakers have so many credentials that it would take most of the meeting to explain who they are. So I'm going to leave it, and I've just listed some people as dear old friend, lifelong militant. Our next speaker is Carol Lang. Take the mic over to my side.
Jeff, if I cry, you can't take that off my time. As I expected. Marty was my going to the movies partner. And so whenever there was a new movie around, he would say, "Yeah, Carol, you want to go?" And I say, "Yeah, sure, Marty." And it was always something depressing that we went to see. But something meaningful. And so I went to a memorial a couple of days ago, and this friend of mine who was also a Marxist, everybody spent time talking about his credentials and what a scholar he was and how much he read and how much he knew. And it was really very unfulfilling because nobody really talked about the person. So I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about Marty, who was my friend. And even though we disagreed on a variety of things, we never stopped talking, and Marty always wanted to build united fronts with anybody he could in order to unite the movement. And for that, I have to honor him because so many people, unfortunately in the left, are very sectarian and just want to have their position out there and are not concerned with really building a movement, but really sort of building their own organization. So for that, too, I want to honor Marty. He was, I'm sure everybody knows, Marty was a deeply committed revolutionary. And I would get phone calls, but 12 o'clock was too late for me. So he had to call me a little bit earlier. But we spent a lot of time talking about a variety of different things. He was involved. It was amazing. Marty was sick, and Marty dragged himself from demonstration to demonstration, carrying his bags. I even carried it sometimes for him. He overloaded himself with socialist actions, hoping that he would be able to, spread the word around. He carried his table. When I organized demonstrations, I said, "Marty, can you bring your loudspeaker?" And he would bring it for me. And always, no matter how bad the situation was for him, he made sure to be there because he knew that his presence in that demonstration was profoundly important for him and for the people that he was trying to demonstrate for and help. And I remember the thing that Marty was mostly interested in, although he was certainly interested in everything, was the Palestinian question. And so I mentioned to him about this dictator that took over Argentina. His name is Milei, and how there would be demonstrations against Milei. And did he know what was going on in Argentina? And he goes, "No, Carol, I only follow what's going on in Palestine." So, I sort of started telling him about what was going on in Argentina, even though I'm sure that he had some idea about what was happening. But the Palestinian cause was his passion. And so everywhere, you could go everywhere there was a demonstration, no matter how hostile the police were. Marty was there with his literature, dragging his bag, his table around with him. He was a phenomenal person, and he was profoundly committed to the revolutionary struggle. I don't know if anybody knows the story, but Marty saved a passenger's life. There was a guy who wanted to commit suicide and decided to jump into the train tracks. And so Marty got the whole system shut down in order to make sure that he wasn't run over by the train. And so he was then honored by the then mayor. I forget what year it was. So we went to the thing and to the celebration, and he gave back the medal or whatever it was he got because of the fact that he hated the mayor. And he didn't want to give any credibility to any of these people. And so basically he turned around publicly with the press there after he was being honored and celebrated for his heroism, and he gave it back in order to show people that, that these people are full of shit, that they don't really care about people. And so he just turned, I have to say that I'm very proud of him and being a friend. And one second. We went to see Origins together. Was our last movie, and it was a real tearjerker. And a lot of times revolutionaries don't like to show that they're being moved. He cried through the whole thing. I gave him my tissues. And he said, "Why didn't you tell me it was so sad? I would have brought more." I didn't know myself, but being friends with Marty, I'm really going to miss him a lot. I have to say.
Robert.
So our next speaker is Mr. Alan Saley.
Thank you very much. I'm Alan Saley. I'm the Chief of Publications here at the Union. I'm also the longest serving staffer at the Local. Before I got hired by Roger, everybody was transit workers, or there was a secretarial pool, mainly Irish ladies, who were not even a part of the union. They were a separate union. Anyway, because I've been here for that long, I was honored to know Marty and work with him. I remember clearly how he picketed Jay Walter's house every single day after we had 700 station agents laid off back in 2010. And Marty was steadfast in supporting and preserving their rights, protecting their rights, just as he was in the same fashion protecting and preserving the rights of so many people. So what does it take to keep on going the way that Marty kept on going? What does it take to care for the cause more than life itself? A real commitment to caring for others. I mean, Marty was an atheist, that's for sure, but he did God's work, right? He did Christ's work on earth, caring for the poor, the people who didn't have representation, the people who were exploited, visiting the prisoners, bearing witness to people who couldn't bear witness for themselves. So when Marty passed away, I knew we had to have a memorial for him. And Brother Kelly threw his weight behind it, which means a lot here at Local 100.
Yes.
And we were able to make this happen. Now, Marty passed away in his apartment. I'm not sure he was ill, and I'm not sure he's 74 years old. And we couldn't find any next of kin. So I was in touch with the medical examiner's office, and we were trying to find out what to do about Marty's remains. And we couldn't find family. Today, I got a call from a lady named Evelyn Block, who knows Marty's sister, whose name is Arlene. Arlene Joan Goodman. She lives in Florida, Pembroke Pines. And she's going to get in touch with her now. Even it's been months, but I'm happy to announce that at least Marty's sister is going to be. Apparently, she has some dementia, and she doesn't know Marty died. But this lady will go and see her in Florida, and I think we can have a fair chance of getting Marty's personal effects and everything he had. I understand he had a great record collection.
Nice.
But Marty, this just happened today, a few hours ago. And we've been trying to find the next of kin, but finally we have a connection. So, you know, sometimes you have to do something. Sometimes you get picked up and you have to do something, whether you kind of want to or not. I think Marty was always like that. Marty was always pulled by some force. And, you know, God bless what he did on earth. So thank you very much.
There was no issue that Marty abstained from. And when the government of the United States threatened to put Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, for telling the truth about U.S. wars, in prison under the Espionage Act for 700 years, international and national committee was formed to defend Julian's life and to defend the fundamentals of free speech and the right of the people to know the truth about their government policy. We're honored to have with us Courage Foundation's director, Nathan Fuller.
Hi there. I won't take up too much time. I'm splitting our Assange defense time with Vinny DiStefano here. But can you hear me? How about that? How about that? Cool. I'll split my time with Vinny DiStefano at Assange Defense, but I just want to thank Jeff so much for putting this together. Robert Kelly, Alan, thank you so much. The Carol, the crowd of us who put this together. We're doing Marty right, you know. This is what he deserved. Marty was not just an activist; he was activism and perseverance personified. You never have to worry about a march or a rally in New York. You know, is anyone going to show up? Marty's always going to be there. You never had to worry. But you know, I think I might be among the youngest people here, and so you guys have known him. You guys have known him for decades, and yet it was left to me to go knock on the, try to call the medical examiner and go up to his precinct, and that just shows you that he didn't let people into his personal life. He just lived his activism. You know, that was everything to him, and the rest kind of didn't matter. I implore you to let people into your lives a little more than that. But Marty was an inspiration, and he continues to be. I'm so glad to see a full house for him. It's what he deserves. Thank you so much.
As previous speakers have said, Marty could be a good friend even if he disagreed. And one group that he disagreed with politically, but worked with regularly, was the Freedom Socialist Party. And when Steve Durham of the Freedom Socialist Party learned of Marty's death, he immediately called and offered his headquarters in New York City and food to honor Marty. And we would have accepted that were it not for the generosity of Transport Workers Union Local 1100. So I'd like to pay back the gesture of solidarity and welcome Freedom Socialist Party Steve Durham.
Thank you, Jeff. The Freedom Socialist Party is honored to be here in the company of so many lives which were touched by Marty Goodman. Marty was an activist, but he was much more. He was a revolutionary socialist with confidence in the power and intelligence of the working class and the oppressed in the United States and around the world to win their liberation. Marty was a thinker and a plain talker. He was a communicator. He knew how to give a great speech, as he once did at Freedom Hall, our headquarters in Harlem. Marty was a force for mutual respect and principled unity. He was never sectarian toward those who didn't agree with him. Marty represented what we need most to win against the bosses, the bureaucrats, and the rotten politicians. Marty was passionate about what he believed in. Marty was a force for good in the movement and on the job. And I'm glad that Carol mentioned the incident in the subway, where Marty cut the electricity to save the life of a distraught man who jumped on the tracks to commit suicide. By this act of humanity, Marty has left us a poignant example of the strategic power of the workers to secure humanity from this rotten capitalist imperialist system. Marty will be missed, but Marty's decades of activism for justice and freedom live in our lives. Thank you.
Another one of Marty's dear old friends, is Naomi Allen. Before I got on the plane from California a few days ago, I was reading some 400 footnotes that Naomi wrote to a 1939 volume of writings of Leon Trotsky. And those footnotes recalled to my memory the political education I got when I was a youngster coming into the movement at age 17. Naomi is a rank and file TWU worker, a long-term friend of Marty Goodman. Let's welcome her.
I want to start by thanking Robert Kelly and Alan Saley for making the Union Hall available to them. My name's Naomi Allen, and I think I'm one of the only people in this room who may have won an argument with Marty. It wasn't an easy thing. But first, some background. Marty and I were both hired. We both got jobs for the New York City Transit when they were hiring in the early 80s. Transit occupies an important place in New York City because a powerful and democratic union could change the whole calculus in the New York City labor movement. And what happens in New York City would have repercussions throughout the world, well, throughout the country anyway. But the reality was that by the time we got hired, the union had ceased flexing its muscles the way it had in the past, and the familiar bloat had taken over, a lot of reluctance to confront management on issues big and small, sweetheart deals, contract givebacks, not to mention terror at the idea of striking. So Marty became a station agent. Then they were called railroad clerks, but actually, universally, they were called token clerks. And a stream of other activists were hired on at the same time from a great variety of political groups, all eager to participate in this historic effort to democratize the TWU and make it a fighting force for transit workers. They became conductors, train operators, car maintainers, track workers, welders, plumbers, electricians, signal maintainers, cleaners, and many other things. What happened next is a big story and one that unfortunately I don't have time to tell you. I'm here only to tell you an anecdote. Marty was really well liked and respected inside Stations Department. He worked tirelessly to preserve members' jobs, as others have said. Marty fought, I don't know if people remember when the city first began forcing welfare recipients to work for their welfare checks. Those were called Work Experience Program people. They were called WEPs. And Marty worked very hard to prevent the WEPs from taking over unionized cleaning jobs. He also defended the WEPs against exploitation and abuse because they were very, very vulnerable. They had nothing to say, no power over their lives. He campaigned to stop transit from closing the booths, which they ended up doing eventually. He would visit every booth in the system, and there were hundreds, and he would go to all shifts, making sure that he hit the people on midnights. And he would give them his leaflets explaining the campaigns, and he made sure that everyone understood the issues. He regularly went to MTA board meetings to speak on issues, and so on. He was elected into the executive board and became a delegate to the union conventions. When Marty announced that he was about to retire, one of his co-workers, who's here tonight, Sharon Allen, no relation but my sister, she volunteered to make a retirement party for Marty. Retirement parties are a big deal in transit, okay? People get dressed up to the nines. They rent a hall, there's a lot of food, a lot of booze, and this is standard operating procedure. Sharon must have extracted my name from Marty as someone who would help. She called me up and she said that she was going to do all the work, She was going to take care of everything. She would rent and decorate the hall, sell the tickets, organize the catering, buy and bring the liquor, and hire the DJ. My only assignment was to get Marty there in a suit. If you knew Marty, which apparently you did, you understand that Sharon gave me the harder job. Marty did not own a suit, but beyond that, Marty was against suits. Old blue jeans and denim work shirts had served him just fine so far, and he didn't see why he should pretend to be someone he's not, you know. I explained that his coworkers were going to a lot of trouble and a lot of expense to honor him, and that it would be seen as very disrespectful if he showed up in his usual attire. We went back and forth quite a while, and then eventually Marty agreed to meet me at a men's warehouse. Okay, I don't want to say that Marty was kicking and screaming, but he did do his due diligence so that the record would show that he resisted all petty bourgeois. In the end, we got him a perfectly nice suit. I don't think the salesman had ever met anybody like Marty, but he was a professional. He sold Marty not just the suit, but the shirt, the tie, the belt, the shoes, and the socks. Marty had nothing. Marty showed up at his retirement party in his new outfit. He had a wonderful time. He ate a lot, he drank a lot, and he even danced. Wow. I suggested he could save the outfit for future use, weddings, funerals, retirement parties, whatever. How much room does a suit take up in your closet? But no, Marty got rid of the suit, the shirt and tie, the belt, the shoes, and the socks immediately after the party. That was my strange and wonderful friend, Marty Goodman.
Marty Goodman was one of the first people to join the National Steering Committee of AssangeDefense.org. We have with us today a tireless leader, the National Organizing Director of Julian Assange's defense. Let's give a warm welcome to Vincent DiStefano from California.
Hello, comrades. I'm not here to mourn Marty. I think he would laugh at us if we mourned him. I'm here to celebrate the man he was. Now, you all have me at a disadvantage. I never met Marty person to person, but I spoke to him at least once, and more often several times a week, in a little tiny Zoom box. And of course, like Jeff and most of you, I would get those calls at 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast in Los Angeles, where I live. And I've got to tell you the truth, I was delighted to get those calls. My wife knew that she would go off to bed because for the next 2 hours, I would be talking to Marty. Now, it was always calling me about Julian. Some new program, some new action, some new thing that he would be involved in. But invariably, as Carol said, the human being of Marty would come out. We'd talk about our mutual love for jazz, good stereo systems. There was not a subject that I wouldn't bring up or that Marty wouldn't bring up that he would have a wealth of information to share. But what made him so unique, so wonderful, so special was that when there was something, a man who was older, vastly more experienced, vastly more committed than I was, that if I mentioned something he was unfamiliar with, he turned into a sponge. He was eager to find out anything, and without one scintilla of shame, he would be happy to say, I don't know anything about that. Tell me. And so when we think about Marty and we think about the loss, I miss my friend so much. I am sorry that I never got a chance to put my arms around him and thank him for his activism. But if you were here, you'd probably cry like I would. But I believe it would use the same words that Joe Hill used when they hung him. Don't mourn, organize.
You've just heard from two of the national and international leaders of the struggle for free speech to free Julian. But there are two other local people who belong to Assange committees in New York City, who regularly mobilize their forces. Both of them are here tonight. One day they'll be in one single committee, but they have nothing but love for Marty Goodman and respect for the struggle that he was engaged in. So I'd like to ask to stand Patricia Dahl with the Stand With Assange New York Committee. And also the other committee, equally active, headed by Zul, what's his last name?
Zolkowitz.
What?
Zolkowitz.
Zolkowitz. Could Zul stand up and take a bow? Marty was perhaps among the top activists defending Haiti's right to self-determination in the country. His Los Angeles friends, who had a memorial meeting of 30 people, it was a couple of months ago, was held at a Haitian restaurant. Marty visited Haiti and established friendship with Haitian activists across the country, and he visited dozens of times. He wrote a world-class book that describes the origins of Haiti, the first colonial nation on earth to have a revolution that broke with French colonialism and established freedom for the Haitian people. He had tons of friends, and two of them here tonight are central to the defense of Haiti, which is now threatened with another US-backed intervention. His book, The Hell That Is Haiti, is a magnificent history of Haiti and a warning to everyone to oppose US intervention no matter what and support the right of the Haitian people to self-determination. So I'm not sure, but is Kim Ives here today? I'm sorry, it wasn't Kim Ives. It is a person named DuPont? DuPont? Come on up. Forgive me, we forgot to add your name to the program, but a very warm welcome to the editor of the newspaper, Haiti Liberté. Anthony DuPont, welcome.
Say your name again.
My name is Bertone DuPont. I'm the editor of AED Liberté newspaper. And Marty was a good friend of the paper. And I'm very happy to be here to honor him. Marty Goodman was an exemplary comrade and a good friend. We first met in the early 1990s when I was a teenager at the house of Dickens Park, Brooklyn, of David West, a filmmaker who worked as a typesetter and union organizer at the New York Times. Marty would come over and the three of us would have long discussion about AD, the world situation, political theory, and of course about Trotsky, who was David's hero. After several comrades from IT Progress and I founded IT Liberty in 2007, Marty contributed a number of articles for the paper and often sent pictures every week to the paper. I've been growing up in Miami. He had a special affinity for reading. Sometimes came by the office to have political discussion. But other time we will meet halfway between us at the Junior restaurant in Brooklyn. Marty was very interested about AD, especially about the working class organization. He always pushing to have a party, a working party in Haiti. We will miss a good friend, a very good revolutionary. As Haiti is faced with yet another US intervention, and the world races toward an epic global war between US imperialism and the emerging multipolar order, we need more comrades like Marty. May his example inspire the next generation and also us. Thank you very much.
Our next guest speaker is Mr. J.P. Patafio. He is Vice President of TA Surface.
Well, this is a great crowd. I was a little worried when Alan called me about Marty passing away alone in his house. I have to say, it made me feel terrible. And I know the difficulties they had trying to find the family member. But I tell you right now, I could see this is his family in this room.
That's right.
These are the people that Marty knew, and Marty loved, and Marty called. I met Marty when I first came into the union movement in Local 100. I might have met him when I was doing some other activism, because he was in a small sectarian Trotskyist organization and I was in another small sectarian Trotskyist organization. And together we probably made about 10 people. We were right, of course. But Marty really was a great man. He was always very kind, absolutely committed to the movement. Everybody knew that. He called me about the Julian Assange, asking me to get on board, asking me to help. I mean, this guy, if he was around today, you know he would have been arrested, right? Yeah. That's Marty. Marty really was one of those people that you could argue with, but at the same token, you know he was going to be just a gentle and caring soul. I miss him terribly. I wish there was 100 of him. Lord knows Local 100 could use a lot of Martys. This is great. I thank Kelly, because this VP doesn't need much support, but if he needed it, he had me behind him, and Alan did some great work too. And thank you for helping get this together. And this was great, everybody. This is great respect for Marty. I have to unfortunately go to another memorial, so I thank you for getting me in here. But Marty was the man. Let's hope we get 1,000 Martys, and maybe we can get something going. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. So this next speaker is a very close friend of mine. This guy is, I remember when I first got into the business, I seen him and I said, wow. I said, if I could be half as good as this guy, I will be successful. Even today, he's still here. He's a dinosaur, but he still dwells down here. And let me tell you something, he's a difference maker. My friend, my brother, Mr. Paul Piazza.
We're taking your late entry off your tongue.
Hi, everybody. I never got called a dinosaur before, but I'll accept that as a compliment. I should pull a Marty and go over the 5 minutes, because one of his legendary things was that he'd go to every MTA board meeting. I think it was a 2-minute limit. Marty never took 2. He never observed that. Half his speech was all the beeping going on when they were telling him to get off the stage. As was mentioned, first of all, I'm not a social activist or anything like that. I'm just a transit worker. And Marty had a great effect on me. I started in 1983, and there was this guy running around stations with something called New Directions pamphlets that were widely entertaining, and better than that, they told the truth. And everybody said, who's that guy? Who's that guy? And Marty was that guy. He was the sole representative for New Directions in Station Department, and upon their victory, he was the elected executive board member. As mentioned, Marty saved somebody at 86th Street, and he was given an award by Transit. I was there at the MTA board meeting when this is my favorite Marty story. I got a million Marty. I worked with Marty for like 3 years at 79th Street, and I have more stories than you could possibly believe. But this one's my favorite. Steve was there too. Steve Anderson was there, and he'll attest to everything I say. We were sitting, waiting for our chance to speak because there were laid off workers. They laid off like 600 station agents or something like that. And Marty had his bag, which he always had. And, we all thought, it was his regular literature with his little picture from 20 years ago at the top. And it was his chance to speak, and he just kind of leaned over to me and said, "Watch this." And I said, I felt like putting my battle helmet on because I knew it was coming. He goes in his bag and he brings out this box. We had no idea what he was doing. He goes up and he was yelling and screaming, and he pulls out this award, and it had a pointy top to it, like this. Right? It was a plastic thing with a big, sharp, pointy top. You got to appreciate that. Marty grabs the award, and I think it was either Jay Waldo or Pendergast up there. And Marty just let him have it. He said, "You laid off all these people. I reject your award, and you can keep this stinking award." And with that, he grabs the award and he makes his way towards the head of the MTA with a pointy object. This is true. So he got about 5 steps before security grabbed him, took his award, and Marty, who's probably the victim of 1,000 arrests, went completely limp. I see it a million times. He goes limp. That's his move. He doesn't fight back. He went limp. So Marty goes limp, and they literally drag him out. And we didn't know whether to yell, "Leave him alone," or just we couldn't stop from laughing. It was kind of humorous. We're not from the social, so we don't understand. We just thought it was a little funny. I mean, I'm from Washington Heights, that's funny. So they dragged Marty out, they put him in the elevators, and even the security guys were kind of laughing. And they came over to me with the award, and they said, "Give this back to your boy," and they started laughing. So we waited till we all spoke. We went to the end of the meeting. I go downstairs, and there's Marty. So I said, "Hey, Marty, they gave me this to give it back to you." He looked at me like I was from another planet, and so he grabs the award from me. He says, can we curse in here? "I don't want this shit." And he took it and he threw it in the garbage. He said, "F them and F their award." That was Marty Goodman. When I grew up, we had 2 kinds of people. Either you were a piece of S, or you were a piece of work. And Marty was a piece of work. He had more guts than a cat burglar. I will always be thankful to him for everything he taught us and the leadership he provided. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Our next speaker is Mr. Bob Pfefferman. Bob Pfefferman. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Good evening, everybody. The name here is Bob Pfefferman. I'm retired from a DC 37 title, and I thank my sisters and brothers at TWU Local 100. It's a privilege to be here. I had to come. I met Marty at Occupy Wall Street, and mic check.
I met Marty at Occupy Wall Street.
And actually we got along because all we were discussing is how to strengthen the labor movement through the Labor Outreach Committee of Occupy Wall Street. And this went on for quite a while. We did talk about a couple of other things, and Marty did flip me on Julian Assange. I think he is being railroaded, and I hope that he gets released. So I said I'd be a minute, and I want to conclude with this. Carol Lang mentioned about going to the movies. I don't understand that. With all the emails Marty sent out, with all the demonstrations he attended, with all the 3 a.m. phone calls he made, how did he have time to go to the movies? Thank you.
Vinny, you had one more name that we should
We actually have a
recognize.
couple of people. We've had people that have come quite a way. As far as the West End, we got Chuck and Bernadette Evangelista here, and Suzanne Murphy, who Assange Defense is a global network. We've got people, including Joe Lombardo, who are part of this network that work with Marty and enjoyed working with him. I just want to recognize them for what they do.
We now have an amazing slideshow put together by Cliff Connor and Alan Sally with some photos that people across the country sent in to show you who Marty Goodman was. Welcome, Cliff Connor. He's a writer, author, lifetime political activist, socialist, and wonderful friend of Marty's.
Thank you, Jim. Preachers often begin their sermons by announcing what they call its text, which is usually a Bible verse or a familiar proverb or adage. So the text I have chosen to base an appreciation of Marty Goodman on is an aphorism often attributed to Woody Allen. It's a piece of moral advice that I used to give to my students at the beginning of every semester, and here it is. 90% of success in life is showing up. I'm sure you know exactly what I mean when I say that when it comes to fighting the good fight, Marty Goodman showed up more consistently and more persistently than anyone I've ever known in my long life. I'm going to show you a few slides that illustrate the extensiveness of Marty's activism and the depth of his commitment to the many struggles against injustice and for human rights that he was always presente for. Many of you here in this room will find yourselves in these photos if you've ever attended a demonstration in New York City. So keep an eye out to see if you can spot yourself among the demonstrators. The slide on the screen right now is a portrait that I think you've seen before. Let's see if I can make this work.
Tech support?
You have to get in front of it.
You have to get in front of it.
It was working from here before. Alan,
Knock on Rob's door.
maybe you can go over there, and when I signal you, you advance the slides, okay? Anyway, where you have seen that photo before is on the flyer for this memorial meeting. And that should be the second slide.
I can just say next slide, go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Who took the photo?
We got it, Rob.
I don't know where that photo came from, but next slide. This is the flyer for another memorial meeting that was held in April in Miami, Marty's hometown, where quite a few people knew him as a tireless campaigner for the freedom struggle in Haiti. And speaking of Haiti, this tribute to Marty. It appeared in a recent issue of Haiti Liberté. You just heard Bertini Dupont, the editor of Haiti Liberté, and it carried this observation: we all live and die. What matters is how we embrace our convictions in life. Before proceeding to the photos of Marty the activist, I'll show you one of the few that show him relaxing. Sitting on the grass, enjoying a beer. This photo and a number of others were sent to me by Marilyn Lieberman, who is the late Jack Lieberman's lifetime companion. This photo shows Marty and Jack with Jack and Marilyn's children more than 30 years ago. Marty and Jack were close friends in high school together in Miami, and over the years, they both became familiar faces in the ranks of the Haiti Solidarity movement. This was an honor he was receiving from a Haitian organization, I believe, in Miami. Jack Lieberman died in 2020, one of the victims of the COVID pandemic. At that time, of course, in-person memorial meetings like this one had to be avoided, so Jack was memorialized in a Zoom meeting, which of course Marty was a major speaker at. I'll just show a few more shots of Marty with comrades and friends. This is Marty with Naomi Allen, who spoke to you a little while ago. This is Marty, and I believe this is Suzanne Murphy, who, anyway. Next one is Marty and some Union brothers wearing masks, because this photo was taken in December 2020 at the height of the pandemic. That's Marty, myself, and Stephen Durham, who spoke a little while ago. We were at a demonstration in December demanding that Israel cease the genocidal war it's waging in Gaza. I took this photo myself in my living room, and it illustrates the fact that even when Marty was socializing with friends, there was almost always a political subtext. This was at a gathering to support the courageous people's lawyer, the late Lynn Stewart, who you may remember that Lynn had been imprisoned as a supporter, accused of being an Islamic terrorist, which was absurd, of course. She was nothing of the kind. She had been the lawyer for an Islamic cleric who had been charged with terrorism. Marty is on the right side of this frame, and many of you will recognize on the left side the late Ralph Pointer, Lynn Stewart's husband. Ralph passed away just a few months ago on Christmas Day, 2023. The defense of Lynn Stewart was a major focus of Marty's activism for a number of years, as it was for many of us. At this rally, you see Marty's back and Ralph's profile, and look who's holding the camera in the center of the frame. Our very own Joe Friendly, who's here today, videoing this gathering. Marty and Ralph, you'll see here addressing that rally, and you can see Marty wearing one of his famous sandwich boards, which here it is closer up. He used the sandwich boards to send messages, to spread the word, hoping that photographs of him and his sandwich boards would find their way onto the front pages of newspapers or other media.
The sandwich boards were very carefully designed to project the message of whatever rally Marty was attending. He wanted to be sure that every curious passerby could instantly understand the issues and the positions of the rally. And if anyone came up to him to ask for more information, he always carried plenty of flyers and periodicals in his shoulder bags. Another sandwich board. This one projects a message of the Cuba Sí Bloqueo No movement, demanding that the United States cease its economic and political persecution of Cuba. And this is Marty with a bullhorn addressing that rally. Another day, another Cuba rally. This time his sign read, "Lift U.S. economic and travel sanctions against Cuba." This was at a rally in solidarity with tech workers at Google and Amazon who were demanding that their employers stop supplying the Israeli military and so-called intelligence services with the advanced technology they needed to suppress the Palestinian freedom struggle. This sandwich board message that Marty carried at an anti-war rally read, "No to NATO expansion." And here Marty was speaking at that rally. This was at a large march demanding that the minimum wage be raised to $15 an hour. This is the only photo in this slideshow that Marty's not actually in, but that's because he took it. It's significant because in the past few years, as you've already heard, Marty had devoted a great deal of his time and effort to the Assange defense movement. And once again, Marty took to the microphone. This shows Marty negotiating with the NYPD. The cops said that we couldn't unfurl our banners in Times Square where we wanted to, but Marty and the other person here is a legal representative of the Assange Defense Committee, and they both assured the cop that we had the legal right to do so, which of course we did, and the cop eventually backed down. A small victory perhaps, but small victories sometimes lead to more substantial ones. In this case, the Assange defense is continuing to build momentum. Speaking of the Assange defense movement, this is Marty and Patricia Dahl, who is here today, talking to Craig Murray, one of the main spokespeople for the international movement to free Julian Assange. And finally, I want to show two photos that illustrate another important aspect of Marty's political activity. And frankly, I think he considered this to be the most important of all the things that he did. That was the time and effort, this is it. That was the time and effort he devoted toward building the political party he was a member of, Socialist Action. Marty believed that in the final analysis, all of the struggles he was involved in could only be victorious in the context of a socialist America and a socialist world, and for that to become a reality, a socialist political party was absolutely essential. This particular photo is taken at a forum sponsored by Socialist Action that Marty organized in Manhattan about 10 years ago. It featured from left to right, Jeff Meckler, one of our chair people here today, and standing is People's Lawyer Michael Smith. I thought he might be here today, but I don't think he is. Joe Lombardo is also here today. The late Ralph Pointer, and Marty himself. And this is Marty speaking at the forum. And so I hope these photos gave you a sense of who Marty was. I'll close with this observation. When a truly unique person like Marty Goodman leaves the scene, it really does leave an unrefillable hole in our own lives. Thank you.
Wow, that was great.
So the next speaker is Mr. Charlie Jenkins, our Director of Training and Upgrading. Give him a hand. Greetings, comrades. I greet you in the name of the struggle. So this is a real indication of a true warrior in Marty Goodman. So I had the opportunity and the pleasure of joining TWU Local 100 early in 1988. But early on in my career as a turnstile maintainer, I came in clash with Marty Goodman, because I fixed his equipment. And so there it was. But it united me. It united me on the power and understanding of the civil rights movement right here in transit. And so this here is back sanitation workers that was simply fighting for respect. That simply said, I am a man. So poignant, so powerful, the message that Marty Goodman fought for every single day. He fought for justice. He fought against the humane war that has continuously been going on around the country. And so what would he say with the war going on today? And so, comrades, we stand as an extension of Marty Goodman. The struggle continues through us. And I can't help but look over to my right and so many comrades from New Directions that understood that the way to organize and develop worker power is through collective organizing and talking to the membership, which Marty Goodman did on a daily basis, carrying literature, not for himself, but for all of us. I bring you to some of all these here struggles that go on today, and we're still fighting for the right. The last struggle that I saw Marty Goodman on 59th Street and 5th Avenue, the UAW strike. And Marty Goodman, to his last days in this struggle, continued to fight for workers to make sure that the greedy bastards, the bosses that we fight every single day, that he was a man of one, but an army of many. And so what we can do, brothers and sisters and comrades, is carry on that tradition. Carry on the tradition that it only takes one. And we multiply, because on the battlefield, there's many, but we start off as one. Solidarity, I salute our brother, our comrade that never gave in and never gave up.
I can't tell you how many emails, letters, and phone calls we've gotten from Marty's friends across the country who regretted that they couldn't make the trip. But there was one particularly loving tribute to Marty that I'd like my friend Cliff Connor to read. It's from Carl Gentile, or Gentile. Can I read it?
A tribute to my beloved friend, Marty Goodman. It is with a heavy heart that my best friend of over 50 years has passed away. Marty came to my home in Frederick, Maryland, 50 miles north of D.C., on March the 12th. He wanted to see me because he knew I was ill and suffering from multiple melanoma, bone cancer. I told him not to come since he was coughing terribly. He brushed it off and said, "I'm just getting over a bad cold, and I'll bring my cough medicine." Marty loved coming to Frederick, Maryland to get some R&R from his staunch activism. He was always in the front lines of the good fight in all of the critical issues: Cuba, Palestine, anti-Zionism, Venezuela, Haiti, the struggle against racism, and his never-ending advocacy to free Julian Assange, who exposed U.S. war crimes against the Iraqi people. However, he lived up to these noble causes by actually traveling to some of those countries listed above, especially Haiti. It is no exaggeration to say he was an expert on Haiti and authored numerous articles on the subject. He did all of this while working as a token clerk and serving as a rank-and-file activist in Local 100 of the Transport Workers Union. See the article in the Local 100 newsletter of March 17th, 2024. Although we came from different left political directions, we respected each other's differences. Marty left my home for NYC on Monday. I called him Wednesday night to see how he was doing. He told me he would see a doctor because he still couldn't shake his cough. The next day I learned from Jeff Mackler of Socialist Action that he had died. I have lost a brother and a friend who will be in my heart forever. I look forward to attending his memorial in New York City on May 20th. That was the first date. Marty Goodman, presente.
Ahora y
Carl
siempre.
Gentile.
Marty was, for 40 plus years, a major defender of the innocent imprisoned political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal. He attended every Mumia demonstration, getting up in the early morning to take a bus to Philadelphia to protest the grotesque imprisonment of Mumia Abu-Jamal, perhaps one of the most brilliant writers, anti-racist, and revolutionaries. Here to speak about Marty is Suzanne Ross from the Mobilization for Mumia Abu-Jamal. Let's welcome Suzanne. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Well, I didn't expect a tribute to be this much fun. This has been really a lot of fun. The speeches have been wonderful, and it's been an honor to be part of this group. Many of you I've never met before, and some of you I've met in many different scenes. When I heard that Marty had passed, I flashed back on myself as a young activist at that time in the Vietnam movement. And I remembered being, for years, and this went on for several movements, not just the Vietnam movement, very, very frustrated that every demonstration and every movement and every struggle that I was working in was so single issue oriented. You'd go to Vietnam. I remember going to a Vietnam meeting in the Midwest, and I was asked to propose to this Vietnam group, could they send a speaker? There was a major Puerto Rican independence rally here in New York at Madison Square Garden. A lot of you may remember. And when I proposed it, somebody said, "Oh no, we can't do that. Puerto Rico's a New York issue." Did you all hear that? Okay, so I lived through that many times, as many of you have who have long histories in the movement, over and over again. Marty was the embodiment of the antithesis to that kind of politics. Marty incorporated it all, and he really lived it. And I remember we had a demonstration. Is Steve Millis here? Steve Millis was one of the organizers of this demonstration. I thought I saw him earlier. He is here. Steve, could you get up for a second so people can see you? So Steve helped organize that event, and we marched from the UN building on First Avenue and 44th or whatever it is to 40 Times Square. So there were too many speakers, as there always are, and so it was time to leave. And Marty came and started arguing with me. He says, we can't leave. We haven't talked about Haiti. And there's a particular reason to talk about Haiti right now. And, you know, that was Marty. That was Marty. And, you know, I think that's a very profound thing to represent. To be a union organizer, to be working on Julian Assange, to be working on Mumia. And more recently, those of you who live in Washington Heights, as I do, there's been weekly vigils at, and please boo when you hear his name, Congressman Adriano Espaillat, who not only receives money from AIPAC, but is a complete, has his office, this is in a people of color community, his office is plastered with the kidnapped people, the Israelis. Not one person Palestinian in his office. I mean, it is really so offensive to just go by there. He is really an enemy of the people. And, you know, everybody does something good sometime in his life. So maybe he did, but it wasn't worth it. Anyway, Marty was coming every week till literally a week before he passed to these vigils. And he would come with his usual book bag and all the materials, and he always had stuff to announce. Every single vigil, whether it was about Julian Assange or about Haiti or a workers' struggle, he really brought that unifying politics to every single vigil. And he lived in the neighborhood. I used to see him way before I knew who he was. I used to see him all the time in the subway. And he maintained that identity as he was doing international work and as he, you know, was active in so many other things. So I just want to say one last thing, which is that everybody here carries something of Marty in them. And all the wonderful things that everybody has said about Marty are in this room, in all the people who will go on with the struggle. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Our next guest speaker is a TWU Local 100, Mr. Mark Kagan.
Mark Kagan.
Okay. Mark Kagan, though. All right. So we're going to stay with TWU. Y'all good with that? Yes. All right. This gentleman here fought in the trenches. I mean, me and him, we used to go at it together at 2 Broadway. We used to tear him down and win. And I remember that he would go, I used to have to calm him down. It's be like, okay, look, you know, we can get more flies with honey. He says, I ain't after flies, right? This brother's a ferocious fighter, and my friend, my brother, your friend, your brother, Mr. Markeith Wolford.
Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody having a good time. Unlike most of the speakers tonight, I don't have a real personal connection to Marty Goodman. If you can say I was a fanboy. I knew about his newsletters when I first came down in 2001. I read a lot of them, found them entertaining, and I met him once in passing. It was at what do you call those things? Protests, of course. It was nice. I felt his energy from afar. He was very passionate. You could always tell that he was passionate about his causes, obviously. And he was a unionist. He was an activist. He was a railroad clerk, and a socialist. Socialist, I want to talk about that. It ties into his being. You know, at one point in our history, socialism was a bad word, even in this union. But we had a founding president, Mr. Mike Will, you might have heard of him. Yes, he was a socialist. He was a socialist, communist socialist, about the same thing. If you take the government, running the government out of it, socialism was very pro-worker, very pro-worker. Nothing embodies unionism as pro-worker, a pro-worker activist. And he definitely used his socialism and his beliefs. It was, if you think about it, socialism, pro-workers, communists, they want the same thing. All work is dignity.
That's right.
Dr. Money. All work is dignity. And I'm gonna leave this note. One of the common things I heard tonight was when everybody said, I mean, not everybody, a lot of people said, I disagree with that man. I disagree with him. What I loved what they said afterwards, he was still my friend. And why can't we all just disagree and still be friends? That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. So this next speaker is going to be a little difficult, so just bear with her. She just recently lost her mom's, and but she's going to be courageous to get up here and speak and say some words for Marty. All right, come on. Miss Vanessa Jones, our safety rep, TWU Local.
So I used to work at 181st Street, and honestly speaking, I would hate to see Marty sometimes. I mean, I worked there at night, so when he came home, sometimes he was rallying all day, and he would come home, and half the time I didn't know what he was talking about because he had so many causes, you know. So it was like hours and hours he would stay and talk, and I would just listen. I would just listen. Like Charles said, there were so many rallies that, I mean, you could be out of the country, you could be anywhere, and you would run into Marty. Literally, run into Marty, and he was an activist until his last day. And I tell you, like I said, sometimes I didn't want to run into him, but I truly loved him. And he passed away on the same day as my mother. She was also a station agent. So I appreciate the minute. Thanks.
Okay. I too am extremely impressed and proud of all of you for your contribution to the struggle for human freedom. You don't know what you sound like when all these causes come together to advance the cause of humanity at a terribly difficult time. When fighters like Marty Goodman give everything they have. When I asked Alan and Sally how many train stations there are in the New York subway system, I can't remember what his answer was. How many?
472.
How much?
472.
472 stations. And one of those late night calls, Marty said, I'm running for office. I'm going to visit all 472 stations with my campaign literature. And I, as a disciplined revolutionary, said, Marty, you're goddamn crazy. I've lived in New York for 40 years, and I used to take, the F and E train out to Queens, and that was about it. Marty did it. He won the election. He got the highest vote in the Union. He helped usher in a new and fighting leadership. He set an example of dedication that so many of you have referred to with regard to every cause where humanity struggles to bring forth a new world. We have about 4 more speakers left, and I want you to stay. I want you also to contribute to the cost of this meeting. Transport Workers Union has agreed to pay for all the costs of this meeting and has asked us to kick in some money to help defer the cost of food. So before you leave, if you want to buy one of Marty's pamphlets, they're $500 each, or a Palestine pamphlet. But seriously, you can write a check to Transport Workers Union Local 100, or to Socialist Action. Alan and I will meet at the end. We're going to try to contribute our share of $700 some odd and contribute as much as you can. Cash is fine, and Alan and I will divide the proceeds. In the meantime, let's give our greatest attention to the final 4 or 5 speakers. Next up is Ike Nahum. He's a central leader of New York, New Jersey, Cuba Sea Coalition. Marty joined with Ike to spend a lifetime defending Cuba and opposing U.S. intervention and supporting Cuba's right to self-determination. Let's welcome Ike.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for putting together this wonderful tribute and celebration that really captures Marty. I go back a long ways with Marty. I think we both ended up in New York City in the early 1970s. We were members of the Young Socialist Alliance. Marty was always an activist and a fighter. I remember the great quote from, I was thinking about what I would say here tonight, and I thought of the great quote from Marx, I think, Critique of the Gotha program. Marty would definitely know, where he said, the philosophers have interpreted the world, and the point, however, is to change it. And Marty was really into changing the world. But he also was a pretty damn good interpreter of it. And he understood that to change it, you had to try to understand it. And I really appreciate that about Marty. In Cuba Sea and in various iterations of it before that, the struggles over many decades to build a united movement against the U.S. blockade of Cuba, the economic war, and to show solidarity with the Cuban Revolution. We had many, and it was always a struggle, because in New York every group exists, and a lot of times they fight each other, and a lot of groups just as soon shoot each other as look at each other a lot of times in terms of, but for some reason, I mean, I know the reasons, but because of the issue of Cuba, it had the ability to unite a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't be united. And it was always something around the issue of Cuba and defending Cuba. It also helped that in New York City, the Cubans were here with the mission, and if people started acting a little too sectarian or too, crazy, they would have to answer for it. But Marty
always was a force within this movement, with all the difficulties of getting disparate forces to work together. Marty was consistently a non-sectarian force that was for unity, that was for a united front, that understood the united front was putting people together and fighting together, even though you may disagree on other things. Marty wholly identified in his very big heart and his very considerable mind and brain with the Cuban Revolution. He identified with it totally. I'll tell one short anecdote before Jeff cuts me off, but I organized a trip of railroad workers to Cuba a few years back. We had a very good delegation. We had a wonderful itinerary, visited Cuban rail yards and the Museum of the Sugar Industry. Marty was decided he was having health issues and he really wanted to go, and so he decided last minute, I'm going to go. He did it. He put it together. So I'm organizing this group, and I'm at the airport. I'm waiting. We got to get going. Marty's late. Oh my God! Finally, he shows. He gets there. He's trudging along in his uniform, you know, his backpack and everything. And we get to Cuba finally, and we get the group together, and the tour guide takes a look at Marty, and he was in pretty bad shape. This was about 6-7 years ago, and they said, "We got to look you over. We're booking you in a clinic." And you know, Cuba has, despite the U.S. blockade, they got a great health care. They took Marty, they kept him for several days, they checked him over, they found a lot of things that they had to deal with, they dealt with, and we got him for the last few days of the tour, but that was my Marty in Cuba trip. My friend and comrade Marty was what used to be called, and it's a great term and it should still be used, he was really what they called a proletarian internationalist. He was somebody that he didn't require elaborate arguments, you know, like Fidel said about Che. All he needed to know was that it was a just cause. Among other things, not too many people alluded to, Marty was also a very good writer. I remember when I was trying to figure out what was going on in Greece, you remember years back and all that. I remember a number of excellent articles that Marty wrote. He was a very good article, and I always look forward to reading his pieces in Socialist Action. And as people have mentioned, Marty was particularly identified with the Haitian struggle and with the Palestinian struggle and with the struggle of Julian Assange. I look back with many fond memories of many hours of conversations with Marty about many conversations. We didn't always agree, and sometimes it would be contentious, but it was always comradely. And I always look forward to that. So, Marty Goodman, presente.
We're down to the last couple of speakers, and I'm proud to say they're magnificent people. Let's give a warm welcome to the National Coordinator of the United National Anti-War Coalition, the most broad, wonderful, dedicated anti-war coalition across the United States. We just had our national convention of 400 people in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And let's welcome UNAC's National Coordinator, Joe Lombardo.
Hello, everyone. This is a wonderful tribute to Marty. His union brothers and sisters are here, which is a big part of his life, and all his political friends and the various movements that he participated in, and that was his life. I've known Marty for many decades. I think we met in the early 1970s here in New York. At the time, the anti-Vietnam War movement was going. We were both active in that movement. There were, in the 1970s, there were takeovers of the campuses when the students at Kent State and Jackson State were murdered by the National Guards and police in the case of Jackson State. And now we start seeing the campuses exploding again around Palestine. Wonderful thing. Tomorrow there'll be a national demonstration in Washington, D.C. where people are going to surround the White House for Palestine. You know, if Marty was with us, that's where he would be. It was nice to see the pictures of Marty as a young man, because that's how I first remember him. And then I moved out of New York, and I hadn't seen him for many, many years. And then we started UNAC, United National Anti-War Coalition, at a big conference. And this was in 2010, and there was Marty. And I met Marty again. And that's when the midnight calls started. They went on for a long time. Jeff mentioned that he would come up to me when I was going to give a presentation and tell me what to say, which is true. And he was always right, you know. I mean, he always had some good things to say. But that was Marty. As Jeff mentioned, we held a national conference in Minneapolis, great conference in April. And Marty was going to be there, but he died a couple of days before and did not make it. And I'm sure he would have loved to have been there. I'm sure he's sorry he missed it. And we are very sorry he missed it too. Marty's a great person. Marty is the kind of person that has decided that his life will be dedicated to making humanity better, to making this world better for all of humanity. That's who Marty was. I'm really glad we have a big crowd here today for Marty. Let's keep that kind of message and that kind of activism going for Marty and for all of us. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a lifelong socialist activist, writer, and movement builder of every type. Let's give a very warm welcome to Marty's dear friend who joined Socialist Action decades ago, Marilyn Vogt Downey.
And I have my speech written out because I wanted to stay within the 4 minutes. So excuse me for sort of reading this. But I have known Marty Goodman for over 50 years. We were both members of the Socialist Workers' Party, and we lived in this building called the Trotsky Towers, which is located on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, where I still live, actually. And it was called the Trotsky Towers because comrades in the Socialist Workers' Party who would be coming into the city to take various assignments and then go out again lived at 95 Eastern Parkway, Trotsky Towers. So anyway, we met there, and we've been comrades ever since. And after the SWP comrades decided to get jobs in industry at the end of the 70s, Marty became a transit worker and remained one for more than 3 decades, as we know, or longer, where he was extremely active in politics, and we've been hearing all the remarkable things he did. He were both among a large number of Socialist Workers' Party members who were expelled. And so we were expelled from the party in the early 80s. But Marty and I continued our commitment to Trotskyist revolutionary politics and internationalism and collaborated in the 1980s and 90s, all through that. And then in 2000, we both joined with some other comrades, Socialist Action. And Marty remained a member for the rest of his life. And as we all know, Marty was a fervent revolutionary and was committed to revolutionary struggles and working class political power. internationally as well as in the United States. But to me, he was a oh shit. To me, he was also a very dear friend, ready to laugh and socialize with friends and comrades. And he was always there for me personally when I really needed some help and friendship and support. And I always invited Marty to my holiday parties, which I had regularly. And when he arrived on time, he usually sat with two other Martys. So when guests would come in, I would introduce the people who didn't know one another, and I would go up to where they were sitting, and I ended up having to say, and this is Marty, Marty, and Marty. And so everybody knew who he was, and he was very, very popular. When he arrived late, which he often did because of his work schedule, other guests would say, "Where is Marty the transit worker?" And they missed him. And I always make quiche Lorraine, which is 5 different kinds usually for these parties. And it's a feat for me because I'm kitchen challenged. and when Marty came and I offered him pieces of quiche, he happily accepted it, but he would say in a low voice, "Do you have any ketchup?" And what I did, but it just killed me to see him pour ketchup over the and when I was ill late last year, Marty called me about twice a week to see how I was doing. And recently I had begun to notice that he was walking with much more effort and more slowly and with difficulty. And I called him up to try to find out how he was doing. I knew he didn't want to talk about it. He responded in his usual jovial tone, "Well, you know, I'm doing okay, but maybe showing a little age a bit, like we all are." And I asked him if he were eating a healthy diet at all, and he giggled, and to preempt any lecture from me, quickly said, "You know how stubborn I am," so that shut me up. So I didn't press the issue. Marty's death is an enormous loss to all of us, personally and politically. Since his retirement, and even with his health apparently deteriorating a great deal, he remained the photographer of record of the daily and weekly protests in New York City, and circulated these photos to all of us on his list to help keep us on top of what was exactly going on. And I hope that this photographic record can be preserved as a monument to the liberation struggles of our time and to the relentless effort of Marty Goodman to make sure that this record existed. Marty Goodman, rest in peace. Long live the proletarian, revolutionary fighting, selfless communist spirit of our dear friend and comrade, Marty Goodman.
I think we're near the end. We have a couple of messages. Here's one from the Federal Secretary of Socialist Action's sister party in Canada, Socialist Action Canada. On behalf of Socialist Action, Ligue pour l'Action Socialiste in the Canadian state, I join you in celebrating the extraordinary life of our dear comrade and friend Marty Goodman. We deeply regret being unable to attend the gathering in Brooklyn on the evening of June 7th due to a major event my party is hosting. The loss of Marty Goodman is beyond measure. He was an exemplary revolutionary socialist, a class struggle trade unionist, an anti-imperialist and anti-war leader, a civil libertarian and anti-racist fighter. When he passed away in late March 2024 of a heart attack at age 74, it was both a shock and a cause of deep sadness. Marty often attended and spoke at educational conferences of Socialist Action in Toronto and Montreal, and he was a generous host. I and others stayed at his residence in Washington Heights, Upper Manhattan. That is how I came to witness his extraordinary, extensive, and unique information filing system. Marty lived and breathed working class politics, constantly attending, sharing photos, and reporting on struggles of the exploited and oppressed. It's not enough to say that Marty will be missed. His passing leaves a huge gap in the realm of international solidarity and revolutionary party building. Though short in stature, Marty's heart was gigantic. I have so many fond memories of my partner Elizabeth and I sharing a meal with Marty at one of his favorite diners or dinners on the Upper West Side, or proudly standing with him at a rally demanding freedom for political prisoners, as well as at events where we sought to end the racist police, the fundamental institution of capitalist rule. Never have I met a more dedicated and self-sacrificing comrade. Marty's devotion to Socialist Action USA, to Transit Workers Union Local 100, to the United National Anti-War Coalition, to the Julian Assange Defense, Haiti Liberté newspaper, and to the New York, New Jersey, Cuba C Coalition, and the mobilization to free Mumia Abu Jamal was unsurpassed. His legacy is monumental. It will live forever in our collective memories. Marty Goodman, presente y siempre.
Ahora y siempre.
So, in being one of the organizers of this meeting, I said to myself, what should my role in this meeting be? I could basically ignore the fact that some of the movement's finest activists, leaders, and long-term fighters are on the schedule, and preempt what they had to say by explaining their view. And that was a moronic thing to come to play. And I decided to refrain and let the people who knew Marty personally tell the truth about who he was and what he stood for. We were proud to have Marty. He was a member of our national committee, our political committee, and every leading body of the party. He got on a plane or a bus or a train to travel to every event we ever organized anywhere in the world, including to the Middle East. He represented us before the Fourth International in Paris, France, in England. He went to Cuba, Haiti, and everywhere, and Brazil, and everywhere else, the world cried out for solidarity. Marty and his program expressed the best in our party, and in truth, the best in all of us. Just think, if we could continue the spirit of solidarity that was expressed by every one of you today, and keep that in mind for building a powerful movement to challenge the capitalist monstrosity that threatens life on Earth today. Don't forget your contribution to help defray the costs of this meeting. I'd like to ask Barbara Mutnick, who was part of the committee, to build this meeting, to stand up and just say hello. And if there's anybody that I missed, we had a committee of 12, 12 or 15 people who every week came together. Now, I did promise one more thing, and I want to keep my promise. We said that after all the speakers have come and gone, we would open the floor for an open mic for people to say a few words. So raise your hand if you'd like to say a few words, and that's for a minute or so. And let's pass the microphone around. Will that do it? Okay. Okay, does everybody come up?
Jeff. Bring them up. Bring them on up here, Jeff.
Everybody, come on up here and take the mic for a minute. And identify yourself, please.
Come on, line up.
Hi, I'm Gil Obler. Recently, Marty called me to work on the tech infrastructure for the Julian Assange here in New York, and I visited the department a couple of times to show them the progress. Of course, as you know, I also organize the buses and do the website for Freedom Via. The last time I tried to reach him was to get him to get on the bus, and of course he didn't make it. And then I found out why. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is John Mooney. I'm a station agent. Hello, everyone. I'm connected with Marty within this union hall. I had a conversation in the past year with Marty, one of those late night conversations. And I think he wanted me to tell it to everyone tonight because he knew he was sick for the past couple of years. Real sick. But he didn't want no one to know about it. He said, John, it's a great honor to be a worker. And I am very proud to be called a worker. And I want to say something to celebrate Marty's life. Marty Goodman, the worker. That's what he wanted to be known as, the worker. That's where it all started from. Marty did touch people's lives, even though he's not here. Every worker he's touched. I first went to my first meeting in January of 1996. Marty was there waiting. I saw some new person. And I met Carol. Carol is a good friend he went to the movies with. And when I saw Carol today, she said, you were organizing, you were recruiting down there. Right? When Marty was recruiting at the union meeting, he recruited me. When I first got involved, discipline was horrible down here. It was called plantation discipline. You were under house arrest if you called out sick. You had to call in and out. I'm in the house, I'm out of the house. I'm in the house, I'm out of the house. We did our first rally. It was called the railroad clerk section back then, not station agents. I'm a station agent. I was a railroad clerk back then, and Marty was a railroad clerk, also known as a token clerk. But progressive discipline changed in this union, in this work site, for the worker. And that was because of Marty Goodman's efforts. Continuous efforts, making those signs, putting out flyers, 472 booths. Thank you, Marty Goodman, the worker. Thank you, sir.
My name is Eric Josephson. I'm a retiree from the track department of Local 100. I would say that the pinnacle of Marty Goodman's intervention of this union and the leadership role he played came particularly in the 2005-2006 strike and its aftermath. And if there is such a thing as a rank and file leader of union activities, somebody who can lead a militant union against the attempt by the bureaucrats to stop our struggles, Marty Goodman devoted himself to that, and for a short period was helping to lead a mass strike of the most powerful union, most powerful possible union on the East Coast, and scared the shit out of the bourgeoisie all over the country, and I would say all over the world. And he showed that it's not just sticking to it, but having a perspective of always fighting the bosses and always mobilizing the workers that will make us winners in the class struggle. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Naima Itzhaik. I know Marty from Washington Heights. He was a fixture in our neighborhood. After October 7th, we started to vigil on 181st Street. So then I approached a different synagogue, and I thought this interesting idea of having men, Jewish men, in the vigil on 181st Street, putting tefillin on. I guess I should explain what tefillin is. It's what Jewish men after bar mitzvah wrap around their arm, like a black striped leather. I was under the impression, even though I didn't know, that Marty is an atheist. But I approached him and I asked if he will be willing to do that. This was like some kind of a statement of, you can be an anti-Zionist and you can also be Jewish. And Marty said yes, to my surprise. Unfortunately, it never happened. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Norman Resnick, and I'm a retired subway train operator. Yes, isn't that great? Marty and I first became friends when I had put him up so that he could take the railroad civil service test. And it had been one ride after another. Here I am, I'm on the Q train, distributing literature to the token clerks, railroad clerks, and I'm just about finished at a given booth. And who comes in from the opposite train? Marty. So, oh, did you get everybody in that direction? Well, yes. Did you get everybody in that direction? Well, yes. So then we decided, go to Coney Island, go to Nathan's, and just pig ourselves out like there was no tomorrow. Yes. Marty and I like to go to the movies. Yeah. Marty loved these action-adventure films. So did I. He didn't like bloodshed very much, though. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to many of them because I had responsibilities in my attendance committee. Anyhow, we, I think together, collectively, we did a great job, and it was just a hell of a ride.
Good evening, my name is Chandra John. I'm a supporter of the Internationalist Group, and I have known Marty Goodman since I was in high school. I met him in 1972 or 1973 when he was selling The Militant on Broadway, somewhere around maybe 110th Street. And we had a very good argument, which I've remembered for 51 years or so. The last time that I saw Marty, he was taking his materials in his bag. He was having kind of a hard time with them. And he was leaving a protest in defense of the besieged people of Gaza, which was at the 42nd Street Library, and that was just a few months ago. Marty was a mensch. He really was the embodiment of solidarity. He was on the picket line for approximately 55 days at Hot and Crusty. Charlie Moran, the former vice president of that union, will remember him. He always showed up, and like all of you, I will miss him very much.
Yeah, my name is Seth Rosenberg. I've been a train operator down here for 18 years. I'm also a revolutionary socialist, one of the few down here in the system these days, and also Jewish, if the name didn't give it away. And it's really important to talk about Marty's legacy because as sort of the next generation of radicals down here in the subway system, Marty was very influential and an inspiration. You know, I would go to protests, I would see him there. You know, I'm anti-Zionist, I would see him at pro-Palestinian stuff, and it was good to see other transit workers there, and Marty was everywhere. I do remember, it was some union protest that Marty got we took the street, and Marty got a little bit uppity and was almost arrested. And I'm not a fan of J.P. Patafio, but I do remember he did talk to the police and we got him out of it, but he was almost going to be behind bars. A very strong memory of that.
I met Marty in connection with pro-Palestinian activism. I'm very glad to learn so much more about Marty than I ever imagined at this meeting. Very grateful to Marty as well. When I started writing a play which featured a Haitian woman in the lead part and a lot of facts about Haiti, I asked Marty to read the play, a draft, to check it for accuracy. And I was so grateful for his encouragement. Not only is there a Haitian woman and a lot of Haiti issues and history and other issues, there's also a Jewish lawyer. And Marty liked the fact that there was a Jewish lawyer in there. So, rest in power, Marty, and thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Ray LaForest, or Ray LaForest, and he was scheduled to be a 4 to 5 minute speaker, and for some reason I passed over his name. I guess we're all getting tired, so we'll give Ray a few more minutes. And let's welcome Ray, a lifelong Haiti solidarity activist, lifelong friend of Marty's, and a class struggle fighter for the Haitian people.
Well, thank you very much. By the way, I'm proud to be in your company tonight. I enjoyed it. It brought me pain, and I enjoyed hearing stories about Marty. I met Marty around 1987. And I guess my contribution could be maybe on some level that I haven't been touched. To the person who claimed to be the youngest person, credibly, I may say, in the room, I may say that Marty did love life. And that I had Marty at my house for dinner many times. And after the demonstrations, we went to dinner. Usually he loves Spanish food. We went to the Dominican areas by where he lives, and he loves it. And he reminded me of Oscar in the movie The Odd Couple, because he loved his hamburgers and he put ketchup on everything, and he just made fun about all that healthy hippie stuff that had nothing to do with him. On a more serious note, I want to say that if you look at his picture, Marty was a brave man. Marty was fearless. If you look at his picture, he always looks crooked. And the reason his right shoulder is raised, because he had a life deformity of his spine. And in spite of that, he carried that bag, which included many things from the organization, and flyers and all the activities that he was involved in. I remember when I had my own physical ailment, from which I'm doing better now, I'm glad to say, and I'm watching the television, and I see there's a news reporting on his neighborhood, and they put a station stairs, I think like 5 stories down, and here comes Marty Goodman, that's just a few years ago, with his hat on and his bag on, and he's got the staff like Moses, and he's going down the stairs, and I say, well, I hope that staircase is working when Marty comes back from wherever he's going. Last, I want to say that I've been with him in Haiti, in some dire, scary situation, and he never backed down. He always treated people with respect. I remember being in the north of the country with a priest who's been assassinated, called Father Jean-Marie Vincent. And, sorry. And I remember Marty taking his shoes off to wash his feet in a little brook there. And then Jean-Marie Vincent imitated him. And that modesty, that an assuming position. So his decision not to buy what the system had to offer was a conscious one. So my mother came to my mother's funeral a year ago, and he was dressed just the way you see him now. He had his, except he had his wool hat on, and his, I think, a green jacket, and he couldn't care less. And we were glad to see him no matter what. And if I was both foolish enough and lucky enough to have a young lady propose to me to maybe have a progeny, to have a child, I see my friend smiling, I don't know why, I wouldn't mind naming him Marty Goodman LaForest. Thank you. Presented.
Thank you, Ray LaForest.
On behalf of the Haitian Workers Movement and on behalf of the Haitian Revolutionary Movement, we want to express our gratitude to Marty And on behalf of Haitian progressives gathered here, for the most part in that corner of the room, we want to say thank you, Marty.
Hello, my name is Bennett Millsack. I'm an old leftist in New York. I'm a retired city worker. And Marty was our token clerk on Dyckman Street for years. And, always was happy to see him as the token clerk. And was always happy to see him at demonstrations all over the place. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mitchell Cohen, and I want to give a shout out to the workers from Local 100 for saving Occupy Wall Street and coming down there when police were coming to arrest everybody, and the workers came down and stood in the way and protected the people in Occupy against Bloomberg and his fascist thugs. And that was partly Marty's doing and partly everybody else's doing. And thank you, Local 100.
Marty also was coming every week to Black Lives Matter on Broadway and 96th every Friday until we got this genocide thing and we had to go to those demonstrations. But he was doing it. Say their names.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shahid Kamrade and I'm a Secretary General Pakistan USA Freedom Forum. Marty, we miss you. You really give us a very, very tough line to stand for the justice and truth and against any kind of genocide done by anybody. Yes, at this moment, I think 5,000 years at this moment in this hall and around this whole world, we are facing one of the worst conditions of that for the humanity's future of the humanity. You know what, Marty message? Keep doing what you're doing with a peaceful way. People will listen to you. Never give up. Yes, as a Secretary General of Pakistan USA Freedom Forum, I promise you, being an immigrant, being a worker, we will play our best role for the future of this humanity from United States. Only because you people are behind us. Maybe we have less knowledge, maybe we have less education, maybe we have accent, but you are our heroes. Marty and his family and everybody who worked for him, he was above some kind of Jewism or something. Yes, we all have a bias, but he cannot afford any kind of genocidal things done by anybody. Marty, thank you very much for your guideline. We remember you.
My name is Lois Carlo Edge, and I met Marty 20 years ago at Paul Siegel's home. He didn't really speak. What he did was he showed us photographs from Palestine at that time. I was so impressed with him being a photojournalist. I truly hope that his work will be preserved, because I know how difficult it is to even preserve his remains. But as Cliff has said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And his pictures are such a great tribute to the movement, and please, I would definitely contribute to that, to have his art and his photographs preserved. Maybe at Socialist Action, I don't know where, but if that could be done, I would be so grateful. Thank you.
Joel Kupferman, National Lawyers Guild, Leland River. First, hats off to the TWU
they were there, unbelievable, especially after 9/11. It was the TWU, the health and safety people from that union that made sure that pointed out how bad things were and helped make things safer. So we owe them a lot for that alone, for saving tens of thousands of lives and really bringing truth to power. Second thing is, I think I have the most hours of any legal observer out there. And without fail, a lot of times I didn't know, where the demonstration is, the directions are off. And I just see Marty, his silhouette there, and I knew he was there. And I think he gets the most points for being at every demonstration. He was definitely an icon. So I just really, I think we should all thank him for just being this anchor of continuity and speaking truth to power. So there's a lot, seeing those flailing billy clubs and the like, and just seeing Marty just like sitting there smiling just kept me going. So thank you, Marty.
So first and foremost, let me just say that to my friend, good friend John Mooney, you wasn't left off the thing on purpose. That was for sure. Okay, I want to make that clear. You are just as valuable as anybody that walks in this room. I want to say that first and foremost. All right, and you are appreciated. You are appreciated. I want to say that first and foremost. When the list was made, it was made up and then it came through. But we already knew that the great ones was going to be able to speak, and you certainly did, and that's fine. Okay, I want to make that perfectly clear. This is a union building, and we stand strong. We are a union, and we want all of Marty's accomplishments and fights to be recognized, especially on a local level. He spent a lot of time fighting on our level, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that certain things needed to be said. And one of the things that needed to be said was we need to honor our buddy with Local 100, right? Local 100, please stand. Thank you. Together we stand, always.
A final thanks from Socialist Action to TWU Local 100. When we projected having this co-sponsorship, there were a lot of skeptics, and I think we overcame the skeptics and had a fine, honest, and accurate tribute to Marty Goodman, trade union militant, civil libertarian, Assange defendant, Mumia defendant, anti-war activist, and all the other social movements that Marty contributed to. Yes, there is no doubt that Marty was a member of a fighting working class organization and exemplary in his commitment. I want to thank you all for coming. Don't forget, we have to pay for the food, so your generous contributions, your checks could be made payable to TWU Local 100 or Socialist Action. You can bring them up here, put them on the table, and thank you. Long live Marty Goodman! Long live Marty Goodman!